Time for lunch. We're on 2 Chronicles chapter 4. And he made a slaughter place of bronze, 20 cubits long and 20 cubits wide and 10 cubits high. And he made the sea of cast metal, 10 cubits from one rim to the other, round all about. And its height was 5 cubits, and a line of 30 cubits measured around it. And figures like oxen were under it, all around it, 10 to a cubit, all the way around the sea. 2 rows of oxen were cast when it was cast. It stood on 12 oxen, 3 facing north and 3 facing west, and 3 facing south and 3 facing east. And the sea was set upon them, and all their back parts were inward. And it was a handbreadth thick, and its rim was shaped like the rim of a cup, like a lily blossom. It held 3,000 baths. And he made 10 basins, and put 5 on the right side, and 5 on the left, to wash in them. In them they rinsed off what pertains to the ascending offerings, but the sea was for the priests to wash in. And he made 10 lampstands of gold according to their ruling, and set them in the hechal, 5 on the right side, 5 on the left side. And he made 10 tables, and placed them in the hechal, 5 on the right side, and 5 on the left. And he made 100 bowls of gold. And he made the courtyard of the priest, and the great court, and the doors for the court, and he overlaid these doors with bronze. And he placed the sea on the right side, eastward, over against the south, and Hiram made the pots, and the shovels, and the bowls. So Hiram completed doing the work that he was to do for sovereign Shlomo for the house of Elohim. The 2 columns and the bowl-shaped capitals that were on top of the 2 columns, and the 2 networks to cover the 2 bowl-shaped capitals which were on top of the columns, and 400 pomegranates for the 2 networks, 2 rows of pomegranates for each network, to cover the 2 bowl-shaped capitals that were on the columns. And he made stands, and the basins on the stands. 1 sea and 12 oxen under it, and the pots and the shovels and the forks, and all their vessels, Hiram his master craftsman made of polished bronze, for sovereign Shlomo for the house of Jehovah. On the plain of Yarden, the sovereign had them cast in clay molds between Sukkoth and Seredatha. And Shlomo made so large a number of all these vessels that the weight of the bronze was not searched out. And Shlomo had all the furnishings made for the house of Elohim, and the slaughter place of gold, and the tables on which was the showbread, and the lampstands with their lamps of refined gold, to burn according to the right ruling in front of the speaking place, and the blossoms and the lamps and the snuffers of gold, of perfect gold, and the snuffers and the bowls and the ladles and the fire holders of refined gold. And the entrance to the house, its inner doors, to the most set-apart place, and the doors of the hechal of the house were of gold. And all the work that Shlomo had done for the house of Jehovah was completed. And Shlomo brought in the set-apart items of his father David, the silver and the gold and all the utensils, and he put them in the treasuries of the house of Elohim. And Shlomo assembled the elders of Yisrael, and all the heads of the tribes, the chief fathers of the children of Yisrael, in Yerushalayim, to bring up the ark of the covenant of Jehovah from the city of David, which is Zion. And all the men of Israel assembled to the sovereign at the festival, which was in the 7th new moon. And all the elders of Israel came, and the Levites took up the ark. And they brought up the ark, the tent of appointment, and all the set-apart utensils that were in the tent. The Levites priests brought them up. And sovereign Shalomo and all the congregation of Israel who were assembled to him before the ark were slaughtering so many sheep and cattle that could not be counted or numbered. And the priests brought in the ark of the covenant of Jehovah to its place, into the speaking place of the house, to the most set apart place, under the wings of the cherubim. For the cherubim spread their wings over the place of the ark, and the cherubim covered over the ark and its poles. And the poles were so long that the ends of the poles of the ark were seen from the set apart place in front of the speaking place, but they were not seen from outside, and they are there to this day. There was not in the ark but the 2 tablets which Moshe put there at Horeb, when Jehovah made a covenant with the children of Israel, when they came out of Mizraim. And it came to be when the priests came out of the most set apart place, for all the priests who were present had set themselves apart, there was none to watch by division. And the Levite singers, all those of Asaph and Taman and Jeduthun, with their sons and their brothers, stood at the east end of the slaughter place, dressed in white linen, having cymbals and harps and lyres, and with them 120 priests sounding with trumpets. Then it came to be, as the trumpeters and singers were as one, to make one sound to be heard in praising and thanking Jehovah. And when they lifted up their voice with the trumpets, and with cymbals, and with instruments of song, and giving praise to Jehovah, for he is good, for his loving commitment is everlasting, that the house of Jehovah was filled with a cloud, and the priests were unable to stand and perform the service because of the cloud, for the esteem of Jehovah filled the house of Elohim. Then Shalomo said to Jehovah, Jehovah has said he would dwell in the dark cloud, but I have built you an exalted house, and a place for you to dwell in forever. And the sovereign turned around and blessed all the assembly of Israel, while all the assembly of Israel stood. And he said, Blessed be Jehovah Elohim of Israel, who has filled with his hands what he spoke with his mouth to my father David, saying, From the day that I brought my people out of the land of Mizraim, I have chosen no city from any tribe of Israel in which to build a house for my name to be there, nor did I choose any man to be a leader over my people Israel. But I have chosen Yerushalayim for my name to be there, and I have chosen David to be over my people Israel. And it was in the heart of my father David to build a house for the name of Jehovah Elohim of Israel. But Jehovah said to my father David, Because it was in your heart to build a house for my name, you did well in that it was in your heart. But you do not build the house, for your son who comes forth from your loins, he does build the house for my name. Now Jehovah has established his word which he spoke, and I have been raised up instead of my father David, and sit on the throne of Israel, as Jehovah promised. And I have built the house for the name of Jehovah, Elohim of Israel. And there I have placed the ark, in which is the covenant of Jehovah, which he made with the children of Israel. And he stood before the slaughter place of Jehovah, in front of all the assembly of Israel, and spread out his hands. For Shalomo had made a bronze platform, 5 cubits long, and 5 cubits broad, and 3 cubits high, and put it in the midst of the court. And he stood on it, and knelt down on his knees before all the assembly of Israel, and spread out his hands toward the heavens, and said to Jehovah, Elohim of Israel, There is no Elohim in the heavens or on earth like you, guarding the covenant and loving commitment with your servants who walk before you with all their heart, who has guarded what you promised your servant David, my father. Indeed, you have both spoken with your mouth and have filled it with your hand, as it is this day. And now, Jehovah Elohim of Israel, Guard what you promised your servant David my father, saying, There is not to cease a man of yours before me, sitting on the throne of Israel. Only if your sons guard their way to walk in my Torah as you have walked before me. And now, O Jehovah, Elohim of Israel, let your word come true which you have spoken to your servant David. For is it true, Elohim dwells with men on the earth? See, the heavens and the heavens of the heavens are unable to contain you. How much less this house which I have built? Yet shall you turn to the prayer of your servant and his supplication, O Jehovah, my Elohim, to listen to the cry and to the prayer which your servant is praying before you. For your eyes to be open toward this house day and night, toward the place you have said to put your name there, to listen to the prayer which your servant prays toward this place. And shall you give heed to the supplications of your servant and your people Israel when they pray toward this place, and hear from your dwelling place in the heavens, and shall hear and forgive? If anyone sins against his neighbor, and he has lifted up an oath on him to cause him to swear, and comes and swears before your slaughter place in this house, then hear in the heavens and act, and rightly rule your servants, repaying the wrong by bringing his way on his own head, and declaring right the righteous by giving him according to his righteousness. And if your people Israel are smitten before an enemy, because they have sinned against you, and they shall turn back and confess your name, and pray and make supplication before you in this house, then hear in the heavens, and forgive the sin of your people Israel, and bring them back to the land which you gave to them and their fathers. When the heavens are shut up, and there is no rain, because they have sinned against you, and they shall pray toward this place and confess your name, and turn from their sin because you afflicted them, then hear in the heavens and forgive the sin of your servants, your people Israel. For you teach them the good way in which they should walk, and shall send rain on your land which you have given to your people as an inheritance. When there is scarcity of food in the land, when there is pestilence or blight or mildew, locusts or grasshoppers, when their enemies distress them in the land of their cities, any plague or any sickness, whatever prayer, whatever supplication is made by any one or by all your people Israel, when each one knows his own plague and his own grief, and spreads out his hands to this house, then hear from the heavens your dwelling place, and forgive, and give to everyone according to all his ways, whose heart you know, for you alone know the hearts of the sons of men, so that they fear you, to walk in your ways as long as they live in the land which you gave to our fathers. Also concerning a foreigner who is not of your people Israel, but who comes from a far land for the sake of your great name, and your strong hand, and your outstretched arm, when they come and pray in this house, then hear from the heavens your dwelling place, and do according to all that which the foreigner calls to you for, so that all the people of the earth know your name and fear you, as do your people Israel, and to know that this house which I have built is called by your name. When your people go out to battle against their enemies, in the way that you send them, and they shall pray to you toward the city which you have chosen, and toward the house which I have built for your name. Then shall you hear from the heavens their prayer and their supplication, and maintain their cause. When they sin against you, for there is no one who does not sin, and you become enraged with them, and give them to the enemy, and they take them captive to a land far or near. And they shall turn back unto their heart in the land where they have been taken captive, and shall turn and make supplication to you in the land of their captivity, saying, We have sinned, we have acted crookedly, and have done wrong. And when they return to you with all their heart and with all their being, in the land of their captivity, where they have taken them captive, and they shall pray towards their land, which you have gave to their fathers, and the city which you have chosen, and toward the house which I have built for your name. Then shall you hear from the heavens, your dwelling place, their prayer and their supplication, and maintain their cause, and forgive your people who have sinned against you. Now, my Elohim, I pray, let your eyes be open, and let your ears be attentive to the prayer of this place. And now arise, O Jehovah, Elohim, to your resting place, you in the ark of your strength. Let your priest, O Jehovah Elohim, be robed with deliverance, and let your loving committed ones rejoice in goodness. O Jehovah Elohim, do not turn away the face of your anointed. Remember the loving commitment of your servant David.